Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 4 of Behind the Terriers, powered and presented to you by the Terrier Sports Network. I'm Joey Jarzinka. We are joined here by women's basketball head coach Linda Cimino. Coach, we cannot thank you enough for joining us here, and I do apologize for pulling you in on such a gorgeous afternoon here. And it's going to be a fun hour to get to know who you are a little bit more.
I'm excited to be here, Joey. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. It's going to be tons of fun. And for those that are just tuning in for the first time here to Behind the Terriers, the podcast is basically to catch up with all of our peers, all of our colleagues, and just to make sure that we're all okay. And it's always a fun hour with all of our coaches that we speak with, and also the players as well. Going to be a fun time. And just to ensure, Coach, how have you been doing during this quarantine?
I've been doing fine. Trying to make the most of it. Trying to find a silver lining every day and every opportunity. I was a little sick right before we actually had the quarantine. I was already in quarantine on my own, but I've made the best of it. I've learned how to cook. I never cooked a day in my life before the last 2 months, so that's a positive to come out of it. But definitely have been trying to grow as a professional, to develop my craft and network and speak with a lot of different folks, and then try to get to know myself even more and develop my faith even more than before.
Now let's see who Linda Cimino is on the court. On the court, your playing career at Delphi University. You were there from 1997 to 2001. You were a multi-sport athlete in high school. Softball, soccer, basketball in North Smithfield, Rhode Island high school. Talk a little bit about how you played all 3 sports, how you were able to do it all.
Well, I loved high school athletics. It was a huge part of my growth and maturity as not only an athlete, but as a person. And growing up, I played every sport there was. And then I had to pick 3, in high school. And I was actually a better softball player than I was a basketball player. I was an All-American softball player coming out of high school, and was All-State. But basketball was my passion. I loved it. It was so intense. It fit my personality more. And, when I went to Adelphi, I had the opportunity to play softball and basketball. But, it was just too much playing 2 sports. And since I was on a basketball scholarship, I just focused on basketball. But I was so happy that I had the opportunity to play, throughout high school and then also in college. Most of my friends in my life are from high school athletics and college athletics. So I'm really happy that was such an important part of my life growing up.
And right out here on Long Island at Adelphi, you are in the top 10 all time in free throw percentage, 75% as of just a couple of days ago when I was taking a peek at that. And you also worked in the sports information director's office as an undergrad. You were also president of SAC, and you were also a part of the Health and Physical Education Club, New York State Major of the Year. Coach, speak a little bit about that and working in athletic communications, so you know a little bit about what we do.
Yes, I've always been a hard worker, and I've hustled my way through things and worked at the mall at Champ Sports. I was there in high school in Rhode Island and transferred over to the Roosevelt Field Mall on Long Island. But working in the sports information office was fun. Our men's team at the time was so good. Steve Clifford, who's now the head coach in a professional team, he was the coach, and he used to actually come grab me out of class because I was a phys ed major. I had class in the gym and say, "Can you fax this for me? Can you do this for me?" But it was fun working in the athletics office. I would prep the TV guys for a game, and then I would be playing in the game, and then after the game I would be giving them the stats. So it was definitely a fun experience. But I loved being part of SAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee at Adelphi. And then I was also a SAC advisor in my first college job, which was fun. And then being part of the phys ed and health majors club was a huge part of my college experience because I joined the associations from there, and that's where I really developed my craft as a teacher before I was coaching. So yeah, I had a great experience at Adelphi. I absolutely loved it. I still keep in contact with the current coach, the AD, some of the administrators. It was such a huge opportunity and a great experience for me, and I'm really happy that I went there.
And now, following your playing career, you became a coach right away. And you went to the JUCO level to start off at Queensborough Community College in 2001 following graduation. Now, the biggest question that a lot of people may have is that you were a player, and then all of a sudden, then you transition from the court to the bench. Coach, how tough is the transition to go from being a player to being the leader?
Well, the type of player I was on the court, it wasn't a super tough transition because I was always a leader. I was very cerebral on the court, saw things differently than my teammates might have. I had an opportunity to live with my high school coach for 2 years and study the game. And I was a student of the game. I used to go and watch practices. Even when I was in college, I sat and watched all the men's practices. I had an opportunity to coach a middle school team when I was a senior in college. So that first opportunity at Queensborough Community College was really fun for me. I was only 22 years old at the time. I was coaching young women that were older than me. And I don't know if they knew that they were older than me. I tried to act older, but it was definitely at the community college level because so much goes into it. It's not just showing up and coaching. You really have to work with them off the court. But I think the transition was pretty good for me. I've been around a lot of good coaches and a lot of good people, and I feel like I was a sponge. Growing up, I was always receptive to anything that people were telling me, and so I think that helped shape me and helped me with that first coaching experience, and then definitely helped me throughout my whole entire career.
You went back to the alma mater, and you were an assistant coach under Kelly Watts, who was most recently at St. Joe's and Patchogue, Division III Skyline Conference. And you went back there following your time at Calhoun. Speak about that and working under Kelly Watts.
So I've been coaching probably 20 years, and that year was the only year I was ever an assistant. Which is pretty remarkable if you think about it. Kelly called me up one day. I knew her because she was coaching at my alma mater, and she said, "I've got a proposal for you. Did you ever think about coming and coaching at college?" And I could still keep my teaching job and just go there as a part-time coach. And I was like, you know what? Why not? So I tried it. I had to stop coaching the other sports at the high school, but I went there for a year. Kelly was great to work with. She had previously coached at, Hofstra and St. John. She played at Rutgers. So it was a great person to get to know better. She's still a friend of mine to this day. And I learned a lot in that year. And I learned a lot of what not to do personally and what I could do. And I learned, how college athletics worked a little bit more and, the player relationships and stuff like that. I still keep in touch with a lot of those young women. And it was a great opportunity for me, and it opened a lot of doors for me.
A strong lineage of coaches came from Adelphi. You look at Kim Barnes-Arico, St. John's University in the Big East, Michigan now in the Big Ten, but also the biggest one on the men's side, now the current coach of the NBA's Orlando Magic, Steve Clifford. He's there, and he was actually the men's coach too. So that really is pretty good stuff. And Coach, you were saying also you were an assistant only one time. Well, the craziest part is that you look at guys like, I think we were speaking about it off camera before. Former Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein has never had an assistant gig. So really, really good stuff there. Following your time at the alma mater, Caldwell University, and there's a lot to speak about there because now you're back. You're a head coach, and on the Division II side in the Central Athletic Collegiate Conference, the CACC. You brought your team to the conference championship, or the conference tournament, if you will, in 2010 and 11. You went 21-6. That was the first time since 2003. Now, I want to know this. You're feeling that you're at the helm and you're leading your team to a conference title. What is it? what were you feeling to lead your own team on the NCAA level?
Well, just taking that job was scary in itself. I mean, leaving a tenured teaching job, taking a big pay cut. Sometimes you have to take a step back to make a leap forward. And I threw myself into that job. I did anything and everything I could do. I just tried to build a lot of sweat equity there. And it was a program that hadn't had a lot of success. And again, I had a great athletic director who was also the men's coach, and he really helped me. I mean, I sat with him every single day and was like, what can I do? What am I doing wrong? What can I do better? And watched his practices. And, you know, we had a couple of good recruiting classes. And so it's nice when you're developing the players on the court in the off season and throughout the season, and you need them to buy in, but to buy in a lot of times you have to start winning. And once we started winning, and when we won that first, you know, conference, regular season conference title, it was like, you know, it all paid off. Like all of that, like, you know, hard work and, you know, missing those family parties and weddings and, you know, dinners. And I had a lot of people who made a lot of sacrifices in my life personally that helped me get there and achieve that success, because I wasn't around a lot because I was always, you know, investing in my program. So it was definitely rewarding. I loved my experience. I loved those kids there. I mean, that's probably the one stop that still has my heart, you know, at Caldwell. And I still keep in touch with all those folks there.
Every reward at some point you had to sacrifice something. So really unbelievable stuff, Coach, from Caldwell. And you speak about your time recruiting. You speak about the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put in. And additionally, one of which, a part of a recruiting class, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years after, or I believe a year after I believe your second season, if you will, there was a freshman point guard. Her name sounds very familiar. Oh, right. Jessica Kasha. The name sounds familiar because she is a current assistant coach on your staff today. We'll get there later on. But little did we know she'd be with you today. Talk about her and her tenure under you at Caldwell.
Well, Jess is a great player. I mean, she was a student of the game. She's a coach's daughter. She played at a very successful high school program on Staten Island. She worked hard, and she came in and she knew what her role was, and she left the all-time leader in assists at Caldwell. You know, she knew that she wasn't the best shooter on the team. She set her teammates up, and she was so much fun to coach. And I offered her a job when I went up to Binghamton as a grad student, a grad assistant, but she was already enrolled in the grad program at Caldwell. So the first opportunity I had to hire her as a professional, I took, and I'm so happy that I did, because she's learning and growing every day as a coach. She's such a pleasure to be around, and she has such an amazing supportive family. And so, you know, for me, it's about lifelong relationships, and she's just one of the many, you know, I guess, kids that I've had throughout who have, you know, taken up as many opportunities as they can. I've often told our players, you know, if you want to coach, I'll give you your first opportunity. And if I can't, I'll find you an opportunity out there somewhere.
Caldwell opened the door for your first opportunity at a Division I gig in the America East at Binghamton University for the Bearcats. Coach, you're known for taking over and for rebuilding programs. As we said, such as Caldwell, such as Binghamton. Your first year in the America East was not as successful as hoped, but it eventually went higher and higher throughout your tenure there in Central New York. Your best season was in your final year, 2012, rather, but gradually got better. Speak about the adjustment from the Division II level to the Division I level, and then also you were a part of the WBI, the Women's Basketball Invitational.
Well, probably the hardest adjustment for me going from the Division II level to the Division I level was that I didn't have to do all the other things that I normally had to do. They had 8 full-time people at Binghamton that did the roles and responsibilities and jobs that I did at Caldwell. 8 people did what I did at Caldwell.
That's crazy.
And so I didn't, half the time I was like, what am I supposed to do with my time? So then I had, more time to watch more film and, really get to know our players and work with our staff. And so that was probably the biggest adjustment. It was obviously you had a bigger budget to work with, so I could expand my recruiting. I didn't have to call and beg a friend, can I stay in your room? What tournaments are you going? The tournaments I used to recruit at when I was at Caldwell were the ones where my friends were going because I used to stay in their rooms. So that opened the door to that international recruiting scene for me because we had such a great budget. And, I was really blessed. I've always worked for good athletic directors and good presidents. And, Pat Elliott was the athletic director at Binghamton, and he was so good to me. And I used to sit and talk with him all the time because he was on Seton Hall's Final Four staff when they went to the Final Four in, I think, 89. So I used to sit and talk with him, and I learned from him, and he was my AD. He wasn't even the men's coach. So again, just being a sponge and trying to be receptive to people's help. So that was something that was different for me. We were the worst. Maybe we were one of the top 5 worst Division I teams in the country my first year at Binghamton. We won 4 games. It was hard. It was a struggle. So we didn't celebrate wins at that point. We celebrated like the little accomplishments. And our biggest thing was that we were going to play hard and we were going to play to that final buzzer. And we wanted to keep the fans engaged. So even if we weren't winning, we were still going to play a different brand and style of basketball and keep those fans engaged by always hustling. And, we almost knocked off the number 1 seed in the tournament. The first round of the America East tournament, we had to play the number 1 seed, and we gave them a run. I think we lost by 5 maybe. So our kids never stopped believing, and they always, kept improving and improving throughout the year. So that was a good year, even though we didn't win a lot of games.
We spoke about, obviously, before 12 former players on staff. We can't emphasize that enough because really you take all these players, former players under your wing, and have done great things, such as Alyssa Ewing-James right now on staff. Kennedy Thompson is a graduate assistant director of basketball operations for you. Speak about what the 2 aforementioned players, what they've done for you, what they meant to you, and what they mean to your staff now.
Well, Alyssa Ewing-James, she actually played for me 1 year at Caldwell and then transferred with me to Binghamton. And she left her mark as one of the best players ever to play at Binghamton and in the America East on the defensive side. She was a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. She was all conference. She set the record for blocks, career blocks and blocks in a season at both Binghamton and in the America East. And so when the season ended last year, when she graduated, she decided that she was going to go play overseas. So she played in Montenegro. And then she came back and she got a job here in the city. And I reached out to her and I said, listen, I have an opening. Would you be interested? And she was like, really? Let me see. Let me talk to my mom about it. Her mom is great. And she's, she gives her a lot of really good advice. And so they spoke about it. I said, I need a post coach. I need somebody to come in and work with our post players. And there's no better person I can think of than you. And so she jumped on board and she's been great ever since. She's really done a great job with Allie Lassen. She worked with Allie Lassen in 1 year and her numbers came up huge. She ended up making all I give Alyssa a lot of that credit. I mean, she's done such a good job with our post players and she's developed them. She developed Jenna, this year, Jenna Jordan, from the start to finish of the season. Jenna came a long way, and Alyssa worked with her daily, and Jenna was very receptive to her, and I think they had a great relationship, and they got along well on the court, so I think that was very helpful. And then Kennedy was a kid that wasn't like a star at Binghamton. She didn't play a lot of minutes, she didn't start, but she was like that kid that was always doing the right thing. If you had a dinner, she was always the one that would pick up the table at the end, push the chairs in. She would always make sure that everything was okay. She was raised so well. Her parents did such an unbelievable job with her. And, I knew from day one, she had said to me that she wants to be a grad assistant. So when I left Binghamton, she gave me a list of schools that she wanted to go to for grad school and said, do you know any of the coaches at any of these schools that could help me, get a grad assistantship? And at the time, our director of athletics, Irma Garcia, said to me, well, we're going to have a DOBO grad assistant position. And so I texted Kennedy and I said, Ken, we're going to have a position. So when you graduate, why don't you come work for us? And we have a psychology program, and it just worked out. And she's done a great job. She spearheaded our community service this year. You know, at Binghamton, we did a lot of community service. And so I put Kennedy in charge of that because she knows what I expect out of community service. And she's done a good job with that. And we're trying to give her more and more stuff. I mean, it's hard to be a grad assistant because they're taking classes and working at the same time. And so, you know, and she's still young, you know, she still wants to have that, you know, social opportunity here living in the city. So she's done a good job. And, you know, but I have to tell you, I talked about the 3 former players on our staff. I have to give a lot of credit to Jen Leadham. She's our associate head coach. And she basically has taken those other assistants under her wing and been their leader. She's teaching them how to be good assistants. She's teaching them about basketball. They're learning more of the game from her. She's teaching them so much about recruiting. And if I didn't have Jen, it would be hard for me to give those other young women such a good experience as coaches, because Jen's really, you know, helped me out and taken the lead on helping them be better assistants.
Now we're going to, obviously we jumped a little past the 2018-19 season. So similar to those who have been watching The Last Dance, we're going all the way from 98 all the way back. So now we're going to do that for a quick second. We're going to go just, you know, shift back a little bit. So let's start off with 2018. Coach, 2018 in May, almost about a year ago or 2 years ago, roughly, which is crazy. 2 years ago today, you said?
2 years ago yesterday.
2 years ago yesterday, you became the head coach of the St. Francis College Brooklyn Terriers women's basketball program. And you're back here, downstate New York. You take over a team in the heart of New York. Spotlight. The spotlight is now on you in the big city. You know, there's no messing around now. Speak about that transition coming from central New York down to the city.
Well, leaving Binghamton was definitely a hard decision, but the opportunity to come back, you know, home. This has been my adult home. This is where I've lived since I'm, you know, an adult, and having the opportunity to work for Irma Garcia, who's been like a mentor and role model to me since I started coaching. It was just such a good opportunity that I jumped on it. You know, I felt like God opened a door for me and I took advantage of it. And so it's so nice to be back down here. I mean, I enjoyed my time in Binghamton. I can't say enough good things about that school and the administration and the young women up there, but my heart's here. My heart's in New York City, and I love being here. I'm a very, you know, passionate person. I'm outgoing. I'm a people person, and I like to be around people. I love recruiting internationally and bringing kids here and showing them, you know, the city. I mean, this is my neighborhood. This background picture is my neighborhood. This is where I live. And so it's just such a great opportunity. And, you know, I remember 2 years ago, yesterday, that press conference, and, you know, all my friends that live around here were able to come. And I just felt like such a big, like sense of life inside of me. It was like I was reborn, and I really I've been thriving off of living here and working here, the Franciscan spirit and the Franciscan mission of the school. And, you know, I'm a practicing Catholic, and faith is really important to me. So it kind of all just worked, and I'm really happy that I'm here.
Through 2 seasons here, Coach, I want to know this. I want to know the best, or let's say most memorable game / road game for you here at St. Francis College.
Well, the most memorable road game was our game at Loyola, Baltimore, because that was your first game. That's the game. That's why it was the most memorable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true. And it was 3 overtime too.
Well, that was by far the most memorable game. I mean, we were playing terrible, and we ended up winning that game in a triple overtime. We were exhausted, and I'll never forget looking at you at the end of the bench, and I was like, welcome to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
All of our games are. And you were like, oh my gosh.
I didn't think I'd make it. And look, we're here still. Can't believe it.
Yes, that was the most memorable game. I mean, we went out to Kentucky and played out at Moorhead, and we had a phenomenal game against Moorhead State, and they were a 23 or 24 win team. They went pretty far in the WNIT, and we beat them on their home court, and it was like 104 to like 90 something.
Yeah.
And
Shootout. Yeah.
yeah, it was a shootout. And, you know, I just remember we were down 17 at halftime, and we came back and we just, you know, really played very well in that second half and got to the free throw line. And that was a huge win for us. I think that win probably helped us get a few more wins down the road because we learned how to win together and as a team.
Now, you were actually featured, or you brought up a few topics. There was a leadership series that the athletic department came out with. You had people or coaches from women's soccer, from men's basketball, and also from you, directly from you. You also had your associate head coach, Jen Leadham. She also led the charge on one of them with her sister, Joey Leadham, as well. Speak about what your topic was all about, Coach.
Sure. I thought that they did a great job, you know, this leadership series, and our staff, actually, we're going to continue doing something throughout for this St. Francis community and for other folks, because we're trying to figure out ways that we can give back to our community. So I specifically did 2 workshops. One was on branding yourself and building your network, and another one was on becoming the best version of yourself. And that's kind of my mantra. I live by, like, you know, every day I try to be a better version of myself, and I want to try to be the best version of myself to empower others, you know, especially our players, to become better versions of themselves, and just trying to stay positive and, you know, be solution-based people, and, you know, figure out, you know, what we can do in this situation to improve our well-being. And then the branding yourself, you know, it was just all stuff that I've kind of learned throughout and along the way. And it was great. I had a lot of friends that joined, some athletic directors from other schools, some coaches from other schools. I even had former players, parent join. And so I feel like when we can, you know, when we can give back, like, that's when we receive, right? It's in giving that we receive, right? St. Francis, that's one of his famous quotes. And so that's a quote that I live by. And I think it's important to give back and to try to help pass the baton to younger people and try to help them navigate these rough waters that they're going through right now the best that we can. You know, I'm learning from other people, and things I learn, I want to pass down.
You speak about the networking, branding, becoming a better version of yourself, and just really networking. A part of that, Coach, is you are on the NCAA chair. You are the NCAA chair of the Rules Committee for women's basketball. You're also a part of the competition committee for the NCAA. All the way from the beginning of our conversation, you've spoken about constantly making the sacrifice to be better with basketball, be better with coaching, making these connections to get to where you are today. How has this made you who you are today, being on a committee by the NCAA? Something extremely powerful.
Well, I never looked at it that way since you say it. I've surrounded myself with good people. I'm blessed. I really am. I've worked for great ADs and great presidents and great commissioners. And I think that when you realize that you have to open yourself up to help, you have to be willing to receive help and take constructive criticism and learn and grow. And once you do that, you know, people want to be around you. Nobody wants to be around the know-it-all and somebody who, you know, doesn't want to learn. And so, like, when I left Binghamton, you know, the America East Commissioner, you know, she had put my name forward, and I got backed by the AD there. And then when I left and I came here, the Northeast Conference Commissioner really, you know, pushed for me to be able to stay on the committee. Being the chair of that committee has been, like, life-changing in my career. I've had the opportunity to meet so many people, but also to learn how to be a leader. I had to, you know, run a Zoom meeting for 3 days over the computer with other ADs and administrators and coaches, and that's not something I've ever been trained to do. You just kind of learn on the fly, but you make mistakes and you grow from those mistakes. And being part of the competition committee, I just had a competition call a half an hour before this interview, and I'm on the call with, the Big East associate commissioner, Muffet McGraw, who's the, head coach at Notre Dame, who just retired. I'm sitting in these meetings with all these people, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just being a sponge, right? And then when it's my opportunity to say something, I want to say something that's valuable. So it helps me think. It gets me to think outside the box, and I'm growing every day. It's just a tremendous opportunity, and I think that it's also brought some name notoriety to St. Francis College and to the Northeast Conference. And I understand that I'm a representative of our institution and of the conference. So every day that I'm out there, I want to make sure that people know who I work for and where I work and what conference we're a part of, because I think that you want to use your platform any way you can. And so as a coach, you want to use your platform to help your school, to help your conference. I want to help our program, but then I also want to help the community. So if I can use my platform to help fundraise for something for Play for K, or if I can use my platform to help, Jen Leadham just brought something to the table for us for suicide prevention. We need to use our platform for, great opportunities. And I think that's something that I've been able to do being on these committees and being in my position.
Now, we look at inspiration, and amidst all of this, dating all the way back to your playing career in high school, you're the most inspirational person in your life in basketball. Who would that be?
Well, what a lot of people don't know about me is my father died when I was almost 6. He was a police officer. He died in the line of duty. And so my whole life, I always looked at my coaches as father figures. I always wanted to be around, that father figure type person. And so in terms of basketball, the most inspirational person, that's easy. I mean, that's my high school coach. I ended up living with him for 2 years when I was in high school. He is still, I think, the best coach in Rhode Island. I learned so much from him. He treated me like a daughter, and he always held me accountable. And I think that's where I learned accountability, and that's where I learned discipline, was from him. And I think accountability and discipline helped me in my playing career and also helped me in my coaching career. So I would have to say easily, hands down, my high school coach.
With summer being so close, Coach, so close, and it's sunny outside today, it's sunny in your background, we need to look forward to something. And obviously going outside right now is not really the best thing when you are not living in a house or you don't have the space. But now 'tis the time where we usually hear the ice cream man. And in your area, we hear Mr. Softy. Coach, your favorite ice cream flavor. Last week, we had Nico Lambert on. He said that Tostitos Scoops. He wasn't really an ice cream guy. We've had last night on a personal podcast, we had NBC Sports California Brett Hedigan on, and his favorite was Americone from Ben and Jerry's. So let's hear yours. We've been keeping a tally on this, my personal show through here. So let's keep the tally rolling. What is your favorite ice cream or ice cream flavor?
Oh gosh, I have to pick just one. Ice cream is my weakness. I love ice cream. It is my weakness. So if I was going to the store and going to buy a container of ice cream, it would hands down be mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip. Okay.
Without a doubt. But I live right here in Dumbo, and it's a very touristy area. And there's like a Carvel ice cream truck at the corner all the time. And every now and then I go down and I get, like a soft serve cone with Jimmy's. We call them Jimmy's in New England where I'm from. Yeah. And so I'll just get a soft serve with Jimmy's. But yeah, I love ice cream. If I could eat ice cream every single day, I
would. Ladies and gentlemen, that is head coach Linda Cimino, women's basketball head coach. I cannot thank you enough, Coach, for being on Behind the Terriers this afternoon. And yeah, and we hope that you stay healthy. And I can't wait. You know what? Next year, I need to know. You're gonna have to start doing some cooking lessons or something when we see you next, and bring in some good eats for us.
Okay, I don't know if we're gonna go that far, but I'll definitely, keep you in the loop. But thanks for having me. I hope you got to learn a little bit about me, and I hope I didn't disappoint. So thank you.
You've been perfect today, Coach. Really, again, thank you so much. But for those following us on or need to follow us on social media, follow us on Twitter at SFBK Terriers, and also for Linda Cimino's women's basketball team, follow them at SFBK_WBB. On Instagram at SFBK Terriers, and for her program at SFBKWBB. On Facebook at SFC Terriers, and on YouTube search Terrier Sports Network. For our producer Luis Velez and the rest of our crew at the Terrier Sports Network, the athletic department at St. Francis College and St. Francis College Brooklyn in Hull, I'm Joey Jarzinka. We'll see you next time.